Hello and welcome. I'm Tim and this is Tim B at Sea. A lot of people have been asking for my opinion or thoughts on what happened in Baltimore concerning the Francis Scott Key Bridge and the motor vessel Dali. Quite frankly, I've been hesitant to say anything because most of it is out of the scope of things that I know about. If you're interested in more in-depth, I highly recommend you go to Dr. Sal's channel at What's Going On in Shipping. He's covering it very well. But many people ask why weren't there tugs? Why didn't they have a tug that could push them out of the way and carry them through the bay and all that? And that's something that I can speak towards. And remember, these are only my opinions. It's just me. Anyway, this is my story of why I think that they don't have tugs there and why they didn't at that time, and let's get into it. Why didn't the tugs follow the Dali all the way out into open water? Or maybe follow the ship inbound when it came in. It didn't have tugs either. That's actually something that they do in some ports. And in fact, before we talk about Baltimore, I've been thinking of trying to how to explain my position. And I think it might be important for us to go back and look at the port of New Haven, Connecticut. I worked there for 10 years, did a lot of ship docking there, and it's very common for them to use a tug on either side of a ship while it's going in the channel. But there's a specific reason for that. So here's a chart of the Long Island Sound, and here is the New Haven Sea Buoy and the entrance to New Haven. See the ships go all the way up here and there. And right there, that's the little sea buoy there. That's where the ships will come in. They'll line up on the sea buoy and they'll start running into the channel like this and go through the breakwater, turn a little bit and head over to what we call the dog leg and then get in there. But when you zoom in on the chart, what you'll notice is that they don't have a lot of water. 14, 11 feet, 10 feet and all that sort of stuff. And these ships are drawing 35, 40 feet of water that come in there. So, it's really tough, and it's so skinny that there's no meeting or passing. So in other words, you don't have an inbound ship at the time with an outbound ship that you might somewhere else. So in a situation like this, if they lost power or something like that, if they dropped an anchor, you might notice that there's a buried cable underneath that runs power over to Long Island, and so that's probably something they don't want to do. And another thing is that they don't have a lot of room here. So in other words, the channel is so small they don't have a lot of sea room to maneuver. So they'll put a tug up on the one side of the bow and put a tug up on the other side of the bow. And sometimes they'll even have those tugs running in reverse while the ship is pushing against it, so that the ship can still have water going across its rudder. But let's get back to the port of Baltimore. So if you see down here in the lower right-hand corner, that would be the channel that we were actually coming into. We were at the other end of this channel when all this happened. We were taking a load in underneath the Key Bridge and going to take a left under the Key Bridge into Curtis Bay. And that was where our destination was, right over here. But anyway, this is set up much differently. There's a bunch of things that you can, it just doesn't make sense to have the added expense of tugs running on, through this harbor. Now, to give you an example, this is where the Dali was berthed and was loading and unloading. And she came off with two tugs that had actually just those two tugs had actually just sailed another ship. And that's kind of important to know, so that you know, if you say, well, you just should have tugs, well, you're going to have to build a lot more tugs and pay a lot more people and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, these two tugs were alongside the ship as it came around here. And then once they got it lined up on the straightaway, the tugs were released, and this is very standard. This is not something that, you know, they let it go too early or anything like that. This is very common. It's a straight shot from here, so the ship will be under its own power, and once it starts making way, it will have good steerage, and the tugs might have another job to go to. I think it's also important to say, we all know what happened when it hit the bridge. We've all seen the videos 1,000 times, but I really think it's important for you to understand that even if those tugs were there, once they pull it off the ship, they're just running along so they can give it a bump if something goes wrong. And that's kind of just a push. Well, the idea of having a line tied off to them like they do in New Haven would really slow things down. And I mean, like, it just doesn't make sense, because out of all these years, this has never happened, because it's just happened on this particular time, and it was a terrible tragedy and all that. But if you had a 5,500 horse tractor tug up in the bow on the south side or on the starboard side of the ship, and the ship started taking a dive, he'd probably do everything he could. But between 7 and 8 knots, 100,000 ton ship turning into it, he's not going to be able to have the same pushing power he would if he were at the dock and the ship was at a standstill. When he's going, even though it's a tractor tug, you just don't have that much control. I mean, like, for example, our tug and barge is about 5% of the tonnage that this is, and if I'm moving at 3 or 4 knots, a tug will come in and push on the side of me, and it takes a long time before anything starts to happen. So the situation is still developing. Well, at least the investigation is ongoing, is more accurate, is what I should say, and the more information will come out as things happen. But I wanted to give you my take on why I thought weren't tugs on there. And unfortunately, in our maritime world, we have many regulations that are put on us that seem, you know, not all, but many of them are really kind of put in place to make somebody feel happy, like a politician. Long ago, there was a horrific accident involving a train going over a bridge, and a tug and barge hit that train and bridge, and afterwards legislation was passed saying that we all had to have our radar plotting and, you know, radar endorsements so that we could plot on radar. And all of those are good things. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is that in the real world, there is nobody that is hand plotting on paper going in the draw of a bridge. It just can't be done. But some politician felt like I don't know, I'm saying politician just because it's easy to pick on them, but somebody made some law back then and they felt good about themselves, and we ended up having to get radar endorsements. Many of us had them already anyway, and I don't think that having a radar endorsement is not, I think it's a great thing that we all should have it, but it certainly wouldn't have done anything to change the outcome in that scenario. My feeling is that it wouldn't surprise me if tugs were mandated to be with ships inbound and outbound going through some of these bridges in the future, and I don't really know that that will have a big impact on the outcome other than adding a lot more cost to things. And remember, shipping companies don't pay these costs. It's all passed down to the consumers. So eventually this is something that we'll all pay for. But as always, my heart and thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those that lost their loved ones, and also to the crew and pilot on the ship. A lot of people are awful hard on them, and I don't really think that, from what I've seen, I don't really think that they had a lot to do with it. A friend of mine, Ian, who is a commercial airline pilot who flies a 767, he and I were texting back and forth, and he said blaming the pilot for this would be similar to blaming the flight crew of a plane if the wing falls off. I think that kind of rings true with me. Anyway, I hope this clears up some questions for you. Once again, this is just my opinion, and what do I know? But this is how I see it. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And be sure to check out Dr. Sal's channel, what's going on with shipping. He covers this and all topics maritime related extremely well. The guy is amazing and a much better speaker than I am. Anyway, go check him out. There'll be a link in the description if you want to support these videos. You can do all the YouTube stuff or listen to Dr. Sal himself.
And with that, if you enjoyed the video, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, give it a big thumbs up. It helps the algorithm and it helps get this video out. And if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon where you can become a monthly and yearly subscriber.
You guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you on the